Peace. Peace and wisdom. It's the wise servant here, Mr. Solace. Now today I want to do this video called the Enuma Elish. And this is the Sumerian creation story. It's a very deep video I want you guys to grasp. When I first came, a lot of my earlier videos were on Sumer. But this one is a little deeper because there's a big misunderstanding in the translation. And I want to break that down for you guys today. Now, if you're not familiar with the Enuma Elish, that's okay, because everyone heard of the Anunnaki in Nibiru. And this derives from that. So if you've never heard of the Sumerian creation story of the Enuma Elish, as it's called, that's okay, because you've heard of the Anunnaki in Nibiru. Now, you may not know it accurately, being as though the person that told you about it never read the Enuma Elish. But this happens in life. But if anyone's telling you about the Anunnaki in Nibiru, you make sure that they've read the Enuma Elish, because that's where this comes from. So it's a very deep thing I want y'all to grasp. Now, I want to explain something about the Red Star, Nibiru, and a big misunderstanding about it. But I want to give you a little history of where the Enuma Elish came from. Now, in today's times, they found an ancient city called Nineveh. If you're familiar with the Bible, there's an ancient city called Nineveh, one of Nimrod's first cities he built. And in today's times, they came across this ancient city and they found a library in this city. And in this library, they found many ancient cuneiform clay tablets. They found many clay tablets with cuneiform texts written on it. So they found a bunch of clay tablets with ancient Sumerian cuneiform writings on it. And this is where you get the Enuma Elish, as well as the Epic of Gilgamesh and Enuma and Narada. So you get many different texts out of this library in the ancient city of Nineveh. But I truly believe the library was a museum, because they found ancient artifacts like wheat and barley transaction receipts from Sumer, this ancient city. So Nineveh is not the ancient city of Sumer, but they had artifacts from the ancient city of Sumer, the same way we have artifacts from the ancient city of Kem. So it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. Now, this ancient city of Sumer, if you're not familiar, this is a people that predated like ancient Kem and the East Asian cultures that we have. Their ancient texts and Kem's ancient texts, these people that we look into, they come from this ancient Sumerian people. Now, their clay tablets, called the Enuma Elish, is the creation story according to this ancient people called Sumer. And this is how you get the Anunnaki and how they came from the Red Star called Nibiru. This is how you get all of that talk. It comes from these ancient clay tablets called the Enuma Elish, which is the creation story. Now, it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. You have Zacharias Sitchin. He translated these ancient Sumerian tablets. And you have that story translated. But it's hard to grasp because they speak in their own way. So the words are translated, but the understanding is like fuzzy. Then you have Eric von Daniken, who came later. And what he did was bring understanding to the translation. So this is how you get the Chariot of the Gods and the Gold of the Gods, because he wrote a whole bunch of books on the ancient Sumerian translations. But Zachariah Sitchin translated the actual text. And Eric von Daniken basically took that translation and made sense of it. So this is how you get the Chariot of the Gods, with the Anunnaki coming from the Red Star, which is Nibiru, to Earth. This is how you get that whole story. But that is not what the Zachariah Sitchin translation says. So the ancient Sumerian texts do not say that. And it's a very deep thing I want you guys to grasp. The correct understanding is a very deep thing. See, we all know Nibiru is the red star, right? But what we don't seem to grasp in today's times is that our star is the only red star. Grasp that. Our star is the red star. So when you hear about Nibiru, the red star, what the Sumerian people were talking about was our star. Our star is the red star. Y'all can look this up. Now, I know a lot of y'all are like, no, but that doesn't matter. But just stay with me. Our star truly is the red star. You can look that up. And we know Nibiru is the red star, so to say. But it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. What that ancient Enuma Elish story, the creation story, is telling is how our star came into being, which they called Nibiru, the red star. And it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. It's telling how our star was knocked out of the Draconian constellation, because our star is the only star that is not associated with any constellation. So you have many different ancient texts, and they speak of a war in heaven. And this is what that is speaking of. The war or the collision between the Draconian constellation and the Orion constellation. And our star was a part of the Draconian constellation. And it was flung out into the lower parts of heaven, or the sky. And the Draconian constellation was dropped from above the cosmic equator to below it. So you have the Revelation story in the Bible that speaks of the great serpent and the archangel Michael, and how there was a war in heaven, and Lucifer and his angels was flung out to the earth. So this is what that is explaining. The Draconian constellation, and whatever war happened or collision happened between the Draconian constellation and the Orion constellation. And it explains how and why our star is the only star that is not a part of a constellation. Now, when you're dealing with the Enuma Elish, and you read about how Tiamat fashioned the great serpent that was full of many lights, it is speaking of the Draconian constellation. And there was a war in heaven between Kangu and Marduk. It's a simple thing y'all have to grasp. That is explaining our star and how it was flung out from the Draconian constellation to this level of the sky. And whatever was here, it collided with that, and so that's what it's explaining. It's not explaining a planet called Nibiru and some Anunnaki men on this planet coming to Earth. No. It is speaking of how our star came into being here and how we, as living beings, came into being. And I guess you can say, the greatest race of man at its peak in ancient times, in its beginnings. It speaks of how this man basically, began to domesticate the life. So when you see pictures online or If you've ever seen pictures of the ancient carvings they have in Iraq of the Sumerian people and how they're holding the lion, and we like, damn, they giants, they was holding the lion. It's explaining domestication. Like I said, it was the first great man at its peak, you could say, in ancient times. And it's just explaining, how they domesticated the life the same way we do now, and how they made a sub man, so to say. Basically, human beings, all life is domesticated. Not domesticated, but all life is created by the life, meaning either reproduced or domesticated. So all of that is speaking of that. But when you're dealing with the beginnings of the Enuma Elish, the creation story, it is not speaking of a red star called Nibiru coming to Earth or coming into collision with our solar system, but it is speaking of our solar system. The problem is many people in today's times are unfamiliar with the fact that our star is the red star. A lot of people are unfamiliar with the constellations and how the Draconian constellation and the Orion constellation, at some point in time, according to all ancients, because they all have this story about the war in heaven. If you're dealing with Hinduism, they have the same story about a war in heaven. Now, we personify this because we don't truly grasp what they're saying. But this is all it's saying. So even when you get to the Bible and Revelation, when it speaks about the war in heaven between Michael and the great serpent, it is speaking of that war. Why is that important? That war between the Draconian constellation and the Orion constellation? Why is that story so important that every ancient culture has to tell it? Because that's how our star got separated. Like I said, our star is the only star that's not associated with a constellation. If you're not familiar with what I'm saying, you have a bunch of stars in the sky. These are suns. Now they're all bunched together in what we call constellations. So let's say you have 300 stars clustered together here, creating a shape, or we make a shape of it to say that's that constellation. Then you may have a group of 300 stars over here clumped together, and that's another constellation. So you have a bunch of constellations, which is a group of stars, a nation of stars. And then you have our poor little red star that just floats about in space, floating past these constellations, lonely as fuck. Excuse my language. So it's a deep thing I want y'all to grasp. That's why that story is important. It is just explaining how our star got knocked out of its constellation down to the lower heavens, which is called Earth sky. So that's why they say knock down the earth. And it's a deep thing. That's what the Enuma Elish is speaking of. And this is how you get that story in the Bible in Revelations, because the Bible is just an update of the Enuma Elish. So we look at all these ancient texts and we say, okay, which one plagiarized which one? None of them are plagiarizing any of them. They are all speaking of life. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's funny to me that y'all don't grasp this. But they're all speaking of life in their time. We forget that life, the Sumerians predated, the people of today times. So you have to grasp, our Bible is a history book. Just like the Quran and many other, the Torah, all history books. And it's simple. It's just catching up to our time. So in the Bible, you have the creation story and the fallen angels and all these things like this. And it's just a quick, brief breakdown of the Enuma Elish. So when you're reading Genesis, all the way till you get up to Abraham, that's just a quick, brief rundown of the Enuma Elish, if you can grasp. And then they get into Abraham, all the way to hurry up and get the story to the Israelites. So they basically just giving you a rundown of, the beginnings of man. Man dwelt as one, then they begin to build cities, then from cities you get nationalities, men separating themselves from one another, then from here you get what is called now Hebrew, which we would call today times an immigrant, meaning you're not native to the land. But in these times it was more than that, because men owning land and having nationalities was new. So this is why for the first time in the Bible, Abraham was referred to as a Hebrew. Because for the first time in life, Nimrod and his descendants began to build cities. So it's just explaining that. But the Bible is basically giving you a brief rundown of the Enuma Elish, how men begin to basically claim land as opposed to just living on land. They begin to claim it as theirs, and this is how you got nationalities, things like this. This is how men begin to get pushed out. This is how men, if I say I own this land and you live there, well, now I own you in a sense. So this is how men begin to become Hebrews. Because if I say I don't like those rules and you leave, or I leave the land and say I don't like those rules, well, wherever I go is somebody else's land now, because this is what they're doing. So now when you come into that land, now you're a outsider, a Hebrew, an immigrant. So it's just breaking that down in the Bible. Then the Bible skips from Hebrew, meaning immigrant, meaning a people that got, basically people begin to call themselves certain nationalities. And you can say the Israelites, they were the last to name themselves. So everybody was one. Then men begin to claim land and you get nationalities, and then you just always going to have the last of the people that are conditioned to that. So this is the this is the Israelites, but Abraham was the first Hebrew, and then his grandson decided I'm going to go with the flow of how things is going, lest we just be displaced looking stupid. So this is how you get the Israelites, and it just breaks it down up into today times, meaning our times. And well, not our times, but the Bible breaks it down up until basically the last cycle. So every cycle you get a catastrophe, a worldwide catastrophe. 12,000 BC, you got the flood, or you can say the ice age, because once you get the flood, then you get ice. So you got that. Then the cycle after that was Jesus' time, and he was prophesying to them how they're coming to the end of the cycle. And like the time of Noah with the flood, every end of the cycle, every end of, I guess you can say, you got a 12,000 year period twice. So we call this the equinox. But you break it down, it can be broken down into 12.5 thousand years, and then broken down into series of 3,000 years. And this is just like the solar phalanx, you can call it, or the serpent's road. Basically the path our sun takes. But in any event, every 3,000 years or so is the end of a cycle, you can say. And there's a catastrophe, a worldwide catastrophe. In Noah's day, it was the flood. In Jesus' day, he was prophesying about, the sun being blotched out and there being no sunlight. And, from there, you don't get any crops, anything growing. People lose their mind. People begin to eat the animals and one another, and it just gets very chaotic. And it's just a normal occurrence of the life, but Jesus was just prophesying that, and it's just a deep thing. Men don't grasp, but the Nibiru, the Enuma Elish story, if you're familiar with that, and you're getting lost into all this Anunnaki and all of this talk, You just have to grasp. They're just speaking. Nibiru is our star. Our star is the red star. It's explaining how our star was knocked out of the Draconian constellation. So you have to grasp. It's a very deep thing. That's why scholarship is important. You know, we think just because we read, this means something, and it doesn't if you don't understand. So we have a lot of ancient texts that's not understood. We have people just speaking what was said about these ancient texts in the past, but to understand. So everyone's going with what Van Doniken said, not realizing that that's just his own little rendition. He don't, he just trying to make sense of the translation. And being as though no one did, then everyone seems to kind of go with Eric von Daniken's rendition and kind of merges it into Zachariah Sitchin's translation of the actual cuneiform tablets. So, when people speak of the Enuma Elish, then they begin to break it down like the Chariot of the Gods. So it's an interesting thing. If you ask someone, are you familiar with the Enuma Elish? They'll tell you, yeah, and then they'll explain it as if it's the Chariot of the Gods. So this is how you'll know, like, okay, he doesn't realize that that's not the Enuma Elish. That's the Chariot of the Gods. That's Eric von Daniken's rendition of the translated tablets. So Zachariah Sitchin translated them, the tablets. But no one really understands what they're saying because it speaks weird. It says things like, in the beginning, before heaven had been named and before the earth had been named, none but Absu, the oldest of all fathers, and Mumu, and Tiamat, who bore them both. And it speaks like that. So it's translated, but you like, okay, well, who the fuck is Apsu? So it's just confusing, but they're just breaking down like atoms to cells to organisms. So they're breaking down the same thing as in ancient chem, where you have the Neteru. Now, I know everyone's familiar with the Neteru and the way the way the Kemetic brothers of today break it down, and you have Adam, Shu, Tefnut, Nut, Geb, Orsar, Orset, Set, and Nephthys, and they break it down as something weird that don't have nothing to do with atoms, cells, organisms, and then the birth of the physical person, the organism, or the star, you can say. So it's a deep thing, but that's all that's breaking down. Atom, that's the whole atom. And you got Shu, which is the electron, and Tefnut, which is the proton, neutron. So it's a simple thing. You have atoms, and you still have protons, neutrons, and electrons floating around separate from atoms. So this is why you have Atom, then Shu and Tefnut. And then you have Nut and Geb. And it's a simple thing. Nut is just the Baphomet, the uterus, the deity of the womb, the great sky. It's a simple thing. And Geb is, father of the seed. We look at it as he's the seed of earth, but it's speaking of semen, the seed of men, spirits. And this is why I say Geb opens his jaws and releases the spirits into Nut's sky, our womb, so they can go into hell, which is a physical body, or exhale. I'm cold-blooded on this knowledge. Y'all got to grasp. Solace is an old spirit. Y'all really don't grasp. It's cold-blooded. But that's all that is. Nut and Geb. You can say Nut is the female reproductive. Geb is the male reproductive, which is the penis. And this is why Geb, always has the erect penis. It's a deep, cold-blooded thing. And y'all just don't understand that the sperm is the spirit. So that's why y'all be confused, like, no, Geb had the real invisible spirits. That y'all forget that this is life they was talking about. But Geb is just the holder of the semen not the semen, but the spirits within it. We call it sperm cells, and they called it what they called it. And then you get Osar, which is the sperm cell. That comes from Gebs, you dig? So it's a simple thing. And Osar is the sperm cell, and a Set is the egg cell. So it's a simple thing. Set is basically, you could say Set is the uterus, or that whole space, that darkness of the womb that the uterus is. And Nephthys is just the physical woman's body. You know, she brings forth the spirit. She's the lady of the house, the lady of the temple. That's the house, the body, the temple. Ancient Chem is simple, but, you know, men are thick-headed in today. So, you know, they walk around with ancient Kemetic clothes on, and they say, I'm an ancient Kemetic priest, and then when I come along making the shit so simple, then they like, damn, that makes sense like a motherfucker, but fuck that, he wrong. You don't know what he talking about for sake of my ego and my pride. And then they just bring all their followers into oblivion, because the followers truly don't know. They like, I'ma just trust this brother because he a Kemetic scholar and solid saint. They don't realize Solace is a Kemetic scholar. I just know so much more than books that I get bored with that. So then I bring y'all into the unknowns of life, like death and conscious and, you know, things that are not written about, but you just have to know and have a oneness with life to know. So I get into that, and then y'all get lost as fuck and be like, oh, that's pseudo, and y'all get so lost, y'all forget I know scholarship. I just passed all of that already. So the stuff y'all are struggling with these books and things, that's like, I don't want to say it wrong, because then y'all going to say, oh, it's ego. But that's my past. I did that a long time ago. I don't even have to, I still read because I don't be bored sometimes. But I learned directly from the life, and the grasping what was written was seen. So you got to see and know. And you just got to keep ascending in the knowledge in anything in life. I don't care what it is. You work your job like a slave. Well, make sure you at least ascending, getting promotions and things like that. Because ascending is good. But don't get lost in your ascent. You know? You ascend. Your physical. Let that ascend, but don't let the spirit get lost in that ascent too, meaning you get full of yourself. Start to look down because you're like, man, I'm so higher than everybody else. They just ain't shit. You want to keep your eyes up so that you don't even see who's below you. Therefore, you know, you're always one with them because you was there. So you don't even realize you're ascending up because you're just focused on up. You know, this is how I am in the wisdom. You know, I just look up and I just keep pulling in knowledge. And I don't get caught up into the goofy things that's going on, what's popular. You know, the black woman is God, and it's a deep thing. I actually seen a video that I scrolled. I didn't watch it. I don't even want to say I watched it, so don't hold me accountable. But General Seti, the video was titled like the black woman was the first woman on the planet or something like that. And it's a deep thing because General Seti, he wasn't around when the first woman was on the planet. And nobody he knows was. So there lies one fact that he made that up. And that's the only fact of that. Because you could never get around that fact. Now, he can say anything he want. But there's lies one fact. We know Seti he was nowhere thought of when the first woman walked the earth. So he truly could never say the first woman was any color. She could have been yellow, green. He said she was black. But he made that up. If you confused. Now people like, I love Seti. How could you say that? And this is what I mean. I don't get caught up into all of that. Seti get mad and say, man, fuck Solace. I don't get caught up into that. Real is real. Nigga, you was not around when the first woman was around. And you don't know a motherfucker that was born, that was around when the first woman is around. So at least if you wasn't around, at least you tell me, man, my grandmama was around when the first woman was around. She said she was black. But you tell me, man, this book said that the first woman was black. But the book just like you, because the book is in today's time. So the book wasn't around when the first woman walked about. Because there wasn't no books when the first woman walked about. So y'all say I'm going to say the first women. Because this one thing is like weird. I don't even know how y'all get to ones. But the first women, whatever color they were, said he has no clue what they was because he wasn't around and he don't know nobody that was around. And this ain't no jab. This just real talk. This is what I mean by I don't get caught up into what's popular in the weird talk shit. But I just keep it solid on the wisdom because I keep my sights up. Pulling in the knowledge. I don't really look down and say, yes, I'm wiser than everyone. See, I say I'm the wisest man on the planet, but it's not an ego. It's just the truth. But I keep my sights up, so I never truly realize, not say realize, but I never become at a point where I'm like, man, I ain't talking to them. They stupid as fuck. I'm the best. I'd never get to that point. It's more or less like, wisdom is infinite. You dig? Everybody gonna be in a place on the ladder of wisdom. And ladders break, motherfuckers slip. Wisdom is simple. It's deep though. But we just gotta start to pull for the real, man, and stop even for the teachers. I mean, I know everybody got their pride, they puffed up. A lot of brothers been doing what they do for a while, but the young wise servant is wise, man. Y'all gonna have to grasp. I grasp things the way y'all just can't seem to grasp. Y'all get caught up into the following, even the teachers. So you have like General Seti. He didn't invent the black woman is God. That's not something like he invented. But this is just like, that whole out of Africa shit. And all that kind of talk derived from that kind of stuff. And it's just the follow on thing. But even the teachers, they just follow on too. Like Pharaoh says, the black woman is God. And he didn't make this up, but he heard this before. So you see how everyone teaches what they heard, meaning they didn't make it up. So it all truly boils down to a matter of they heard something they liked. You see how interesting that is? A man teaches the black woman is God. But if he didn't make that up, then all he can say truly is he heard something he liked. So I want you to think on that. When Pharaoh says the black woman is God, in all truth, what you see is a man just saying what he heard that he liked. No different than when he says it and you hear it and you like it. Same shit. So you're being taught by yourself. You see how interesting that is? Because Pharaoh and a lot of the other teachers, especially the younger ones, they do what y'all do. They watch YouTube. They get ideas from that. And he just pretty much makes a video and y'all don't. So it's a deep thing. It's like the blind leading the blind. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. He's going to take it wrong. But whatever. It doesn't matter. It's deep. Like, not in an insulting way, but when I say it doesn't matter, I mean in a sense of don't nobody want to sit down with the wise servant. Let's just be real about it, So it doesn't matter in that sense. No one's going to challenge me on a real level. Like, yo, I'll debate you and shit. Nobody going to do that shit. It would have happened already. So it's a deep thing. And I say that because all the brothers that talk to me off camera. It's just when the camera's on, it's like, nah, fuck Solace. Who is that? Niggas act like they don't know who I am and shit. So I'm like, oh, okay. You don't know who I am. You don't watch me. Oh, all right. But it's a deep thing. We got to just get more to the real, teachers included, because it's about wisdom, knowledge. We get lost into the follower stuff and the following and how many followers you have is, I guess that's something, but you can't forget about wisdom. Like, a man gets following, forgetting, I have to get wisdom. Motherfucker could be teaching the wrong thing that's popular, but he forget that. He get lost into the, nah, what I'm saying got to be right, because look how many followers I got. He forgets, hold on, this is about me getting smart. Not me getting followers, that's just the perks of the shit. So it's deep. We get lost into the following, and this is where the ego builds up to where a man forgets. This is my path and journey to wisdom. And I may go the wrong way, but I have to deter this way. But if you have a bunch of motherfuckers following you, like, I don't want to. Shit, I know Solace just said that this chem shit is like this, and he right. But I don't want to journey on my path his way. And my followers look at me crazy and they follow Solace, and then we get lost into that. So that's what truly begins to deter the teachers from their path of wisdom. So I say that because I don't want the teachers to get lost in their path. It's so cold-blooded with the wisdom. It's easy to get lost in your path that way, where you know in self, like, hold on, this brother may be right, but then somehow you kind of just continue on your path of what you're doing, and this kind of just it takes you away from devoting to the cause, the purity of it. It's okay to stumble and fall, you know? And, you know, if you got real followers and fans, they should stick with you, understanding that wisdom is a deep thing. So, you know, your teacher, your favorite that you like, he's gonna be wrong. Just trust me. He's probably wrong right now, but that's ego if I say that. So he's gonna be wrong, and it's okay. So if you following a brother and he says something wrong, it's okay. Wisdom is a deep thing, but it's when a man gets lost and forgets that he can stumble, and he feels like he knows everything before it's time. So it's a deep thing. I don't want y'all to associate me with this. It's deep when I say I know everything. And, you know, I went through things y'all would not go through to get the wisdom I have to even understand, okay, he is different. It's a deep thing. Motherfuckers ain't gonna go through what I went through to get this wise. So I'm not saying for myself I'm going to stumble, and everything I've ever said is accurate. But I'm on a path of truth. Brothers are searching for the path and understanding, and so that's why I say wisdom is a deep thing. It's like, wisdom is like, you can say this is the path of all truthness. And then you have many roads, you know, dissecting off of it, from it, to it. And this is like how the teachers or men are in life. So I'm just giving it to you from the perspective, if I am the all, which I would call like God, and it's deep. I can view life from this perspective. Y'all can too, but y'all don't understand enough to do that. So there lies he's bugging, but I'm viewing it. That's why I'm like that, you know. It's like a path of truth, and it's just never ending, extending. And if you're on that path of foundation, you can't steer wrong. I don't go with what's popular. So y'all have to grasp that these are reasons where you can say, okay, when he says he's not wrong, it's more than just ego. Because y'all are going to classify it that, oh, it's ego. But it's more than that. It's a reason why. Y'all see, I don't sway. I know what's popular. I know what's not. I know if I say this. I know if I come and say I'm a Christian, because I break the Bible down cold-blooded. We're a Christian to love me. If I said I'm believing Jesus and all of that, I'll be probably the highest paid pastor in Christianity in today's times, if I said I was a Christian. Because it's undeniable the way I break down the Bible. It's beautiful. It's like beautiful poetry. You like, God damn, he actually understand that shit. Nobody do. Preachers don't even. He do. So imagine if I was a Christian preacher. It'd be over. Be like, this motherfucker's Jesus. So that's why I don't even go that route. I make sure I'm not into that religion. I'm not here to be greater than you, but just get jealous because I'm just like your ass, but I'm smarter than you. So now, that's what I'm here for you to grasp. I ain't fucking reaching for make-believe shit and gods and fucking this a nigga right here with y'all, smart as fuck. Just like you. So you ain't got no excuse now. That's what I'm here for. To show you what y'all call divine is y'all. Y'all just dumb as fuck. So I'm a reflection of that. Look how fucking smart you truly could be. You don't have to make up shit. You can actually grasp. You know how it's the truth? There's this regular ass dude named Solace. Don't even look smart. Know everything. Grasp. It's a deep, cold-blooded thing. But it's the wise servant here, Mr. Solace. Peace and wisdom. This video was truly done in humility. I just want y'all to grasp every aspect of everything. It's deep. We don't pay attention to every speck of detail to truly grasp. It's deep. I ain't watched TV in 3 years. How many men gonna do that to grasp? Now, of course, if I go to other people's house and they got TV on, I watch it, but I drift off in my thoughts. So, and this is because I'm not used to watching TV anymore. I'm used to like meditating or doing something with my own time as opposed to watching someone else's time. So I have a television. I don't want you to get lost, but I just don't watch it because when I watch it, then I meditate. It's a deep thing. A monk could grasp what I'm saying. Turn the TV on to a monk, he just can't get into it. It's not entertaining to him. He like, nah, it's real life. I could be exploring. It's deep. The fuck I'm gonna watch that for? That's weird. But it's like, y'all, think in reverse. If I told you sit still in the bathroom and just think, you'd be like, I'll kill myself. Now you can focus on the TV, but if I say cut that off and just think, you like, man, I can't do that because I ain't used to that. So flip it in reverse. If you went a long time without television, well, you'd spend a lot of time thinking. And then when you turn on television, you'd like just start to think. Zone out from that, you just be thinking, and you realize, well, watching television is a waste of time. So I don't even cut the TV on. It's deep. Now I do watch things, but I watch things that have nothing to do with entertainment. Just all knowledge stuff. I spend a lot of time looking up things like words. Not like how y'all think, so I can speak smart and know the definition of everything, but no. I look up words to get an understanding of what ancient words meant. So that's how I know what Hebrew meant. So when I say look up a word, see, I'll look up what Hebrew meant and get as many different perspectives on what Hebrew meant. Then I read the Bible. See how they used the word. And one escaped. This is after they kidnapped Lot. And one escaped and came back to Abraham, the Hebrew, who was under the terebinth tree on the Amorites' land. So it's a deep thing. Damn, the video about to shut off because my battery is low. But I look at the text, I say, okay, Abraham was under the terebinth tree on someone else's land, the Amorites. And they called them a Hebrew then, but they never called them that before. And before that, he was on his own land in Haran. So I said, And then I just understand the Bible. So I know they're talking about the beginnings of nations and kingdoms. So I said, oh, wasn't no nationalities then. He got caught up. He was one of the last. And he ain't had no nationality. So he was a Hebrew. That meant a motherfucker that way ain't had no nationality. It meant your ass. So I don't want you to think immigrant in terms of a Mexican coming to America or an Asian coming to America. But I want you to think in terms of immigrant like your ass, where you don't even have a nationality. Not only do you not own, or not only do you not have any rights on the land you're on, but you don't even know your nationality. So it's deep. That's what a Hebrew was. But it's just cold-blooded. I just want y'all to grasp every aspect of things and just grasp. Try not to get so insulted, you know. Wisdom is insulting in itself. So just me being wise is insulting in itself. And y'all just have to grasp certain little things like that. You know. The sun shining down on you at high noon at full blast. You know, it's insulting. But you got to respect it. You like, man, I need this, son. This how I get my food and stuff, man. But nigga, you disrespectful, blood. It's hot as fuck. You just gonna be bright all in my face like that, knowing I can't, compete. Alright. So this is what I mean by just a man being wise. It's just